Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this really simple double oven mitt, and it has no binding. Let's start by looking at our fabrics. You'll need two different fabrics, a half yard of each, and you want a little bit of contrast for fun. So I'm going to start by cutting our half yards. They're going to be cut the same as far as strips. So I have my main fabric here. This is what you want to be the main fabric, and then you have your accent and backing fabric. So I'm going to make sure that this is folded so that I have both of my folds parallel, and we want to cut two strips from each of the fabrics. And so I'm just lining up a line here on my ruler on the bottom, fold, and then checking to see if my top fold is parallel, and it is looking good. So I am going to cut two 7.5-inch strips, and we're going to do the same from our second fabric. So we have our two strips, 7.5-inch. So I did already do that with my accent fabric. Two of them I'm going to set aside, one of each, and we're going to subcut just one of them. So for our main fabric, we want to cut two rectangles that are 9 by 7.5 from this piece. And if you have something like this and you want to kind of fuzzy cut it so that you want a certain image in there, you can. For example, I think this would be pretty to include both of these. Or if you want to have a little bit of red, you can choose kind of how you do that. So I am happy with doing both of these. So I'm just going to fold this to here and cut two of my rectangles from this side. So you need, for the main fabric, that needs to be, it's already 7.5, and we need a 9-inch rectangle. So I'm going to just cut here on the 0. And the 9. So there I have that. The rest is just left over. For the accent fabric, we need to cut a little bit larger. So we need 7.5 by 10. So I'm going to align a line on the bottom of my strip here and just cut 10 inches. Two rectangles, and we are good with the cutting. So except for our batting and our insulbrite. So we have our batting. So you have, this is just a single polyester batting. It is fusible on one side. This is what was in our boxes, but any kind of batting will work. So we just need two rectangles that are cut at 7.5 by 9. And then for our insulbrite, which is insulated batting, we want to cut 4 rectangles at 7.5 by 10. So those I have here. I have layered two layers of them, and if you have a 505 adhesive spray, this is basting spray, I use that just to kind of keep them together. It doesn't have to be basted together. It's just nice that they stick together, just to spray a little bit to stick these two layers together. So we have 2 layers of the insulated batting, 2 rectangles at 7.5 by 10. So the beautiful thing about this double oven mitt is the fact that it is no binding. So we're going to start with our batting piece. And if you have fusible batting, I want to put my main fabric right here on top of the fusible batting. And if you want to fuse that, go ahead and do that. I can do that afterwards. So I'm just going to show you the next step. So now we're going to take the accent fabric that are, this piece is 1 inch longer. So what we want to do here is lay this on top and align these top raw edges. So let me see. Yep, this works for me. Like that. And up here. So I'm going to be sewing here across but I want to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So if you want to mark that, if you have a marking for a 1/2 inch seam allowance on your sewing machine, you can do that. Or I'm just going to use a marking pen, just a water erasable marking pen. Anything works really. And I have my ruler, my 1/2 inch line on my ruler, and I can just draw a line here that I can then follow with my needle as I sew this on each side here. So, which is nice. So I can wait to press this until afterwards. I'm gonna just put a pin in each so I can keep it together. So my first step is just to go ahead and sew right across that seam, following that line with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I have put my walking foot on my machine. This is a digital dual feed foot. That's going to be really helpful as we're sewing through quite a few layers. You don't have to, but I have done that. I've also made sure to use thread in there that I have a dark gray, something that is going to kind of blend well with both colors. And so I have that both in my top and my bottom bobbin. So I am going to just sew here right on the lines that I drew. So here you see I have sewn across. What you want to do is just press this outwards, just like I have done here. And I went ahead and pressed this down as well. And then you want to just fold it to the back. So fold it over to the back. And so if your seam was the correct width, you're going to have this filled in all the way on the back. So what we want to do here, I like to do this whenever we're doing a project that you're sewing through a lot of layers. I am just going to go ahead and stitch on the inside around all of these open sides, the raw edge sides, with just about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just to keep these layers together. And then I'm also going to go and stitch right in the ditch here along this seam. So this creates just a little bit of looks like a bound edge. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around here to keep these pieces in place. If you want to, you can add a little bit more quilting on here. You can do an X here, or you can do lines, or you can just leave it like this. It really doesn't need any quilting, but if you want to enhance it a little bit, you can. So now we have both of these pieces basted. I didn't add any quilting to mine, but of course you can do that if you want. So now I'm going to move on to our other pieces. So our long pieces, we want to take this long strip that we have with the fabric. We just want to make sure they are the same length. So what I'm going to do is have my fold here on one side of both of them and just trim off the selvage ends, but just trim them so they will be perfectly even. So I'm just going to grab any ruler here, move my 0 slit here as close to the selvage, and this is even. So now we have a perfectly clean edge and no selvages on either one. I like to keep that fold because this is also marking our center, so which is very nice. So now this is going to become your backing, and then this is going to be your inside piece that is like the main piece. So we are going to add our insulated batting to this part here. We're going to just lay that right here on the wrong side of the fabric on the edge. And so what you can do here is either just add a little spray with the adhesive here, just right on your fabric, and stick it to it, or you can just pin this in place. You want to do this on each end. So it doesn't have to be a lot, just to keep it in place while you stitch it down. So now I am going to go ahead and stitch around the whole edge, just like we did. Actually, I'm just going to do like a U, just around the outside. I'm going to leave the top open on both sides. And if you want to, you can also put a little bit of quilting in here just to help stabilize it, but it's not needed. As you can see, now I've stitched on the inside, so these are secure. And so now it is time to layer our oven mitt. We want to take the front piece. This will be where we stick our hand in. So this one doesn't have to be thick. This is what's going to insulate us from that heat. So we want to layer this right on top here and on the other side. So we're talking right side up. This is the inside of the pocket, and this is right side up, or inside of the mitt. And now we're going to take our other fabric, and so I'm going to push this out. We're going to lay that right sides together. So we're going to just sew this right sides together all the way around, leaving an opening and then turning our whole thing. Before we attach this, because we're going to do a little bit of a blunt corners on this, makes it a lot easier. I like to take my backing piece before I do that and mark that up. So if you have and you can vary this angle, but if you have a point trimmers, I'm using our 90-degree point trimmer here. So if you can see it, and you can see the dotted lines. I'm going to line the corners of the fabric with the dotted lines. So as you can see, and this is going to be the back side of your fabric, so you don't have to worry about using a water erasable pen, but I'm just going to mark the corners like this. So it can be any angle. If you don't have the trimmers, you can just use a regular ruler and mark. It's about 2.5 inches from the corners, and do a 90-degree angle, or a 45-degree angle, I was going to say, from corner to corner. But this is just handy if you have these around to grab it. It has the perfect angle and perfect distance as well. So once you have that, we're just going to layer this on top of our piece. And making sure that this is all nice and straight. I'm going to just grab my clips, my easy clips. This is nice because this is a thick layer here we're going to be sewing together, or sewing through. So I'm just going to put these on to hold it together. You can of course pin it as well. It's just nice when you have such thick layers to really hold it together like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my other side on that end and clip this one in place as well. So before we sew anything, we want to make sure everything is held really nicely together. This goes together so quickly compared to other similar double oven mitts that are both all the way quilted and then bound. So now that I have my ends all secure, I'm just going to pull open the center here. Our folds should match up. So I like to pin where there's just a single layer of fabric so that it kind of stays together better than with the clips. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin. I'm going to pin close to the edge of the batting here on both sides and then along the sides too. Put a couple of more pins on the sides, and then we are ready to stitch this. So what we want to do, again, I totally recommend a walking foot because this is a really thick layer coming through here. What we want to do is on one side we want to leave an opening of about at least 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches, but so we would start one side, so all the way around, come back and just leave that opening. Make sure you back stitch where you have that opening, and then we will come back and turn our whole piece around, and I'll show you how to finish it up. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around here. As I sew and I come to my markings on the corner, I'm going to sew to this line, and then I'm just going to follow the line all the way down, keep going across, and then stitch along the line again. So just put my needle down right at the line, and then I turn and stitch right on the line at that angle. So here I have my piece, I have my opening here, and first before we start turning, we want to trim up our corner. So trim it to about 1/4 of an inch to that diagonal seam, and then I like to just trim off a little bit of those corners to make it easier to turn. So just kind of rounding that corner a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to do that on the other side too. So now we have it trimmed up, and it's time to get in here and turn this piece. So I want to go in on one side and pull it through all the way through, and I can go into my pocket. First, I want to just put my hand in the whole thing and push out those corners with my fingers. And you can use a tool as well to push. I have a little tool that I can push those corners out to bring in here. They don't have to be sharp. It's okay to have them a little bit rounded. There, and then we can also get right in here in the pocket and help with it too. Push it out. So let's get on the other side. So now we are going to press our whole piece. So once you have this pushed out, these corners should be just a little bit rounded, which is okay. I'm going to press using a nice steam iron, and I also flip it to the other side to press the other side here on the thick ends. And I'm going to do that here as well. So then once you have the ends nicely pressed, I'm going to press my raw edge opening, press that in, and also these sides. So I like to pull out the seam, push it out, and then give it a nice press so it's nice and even along this side. Now they have the sides pressed. I just want to give the middle a nice press. So we're going to do a little bit of top stitching to secure our pieces. You will feel that your insulated batting is going to come to about an inch past this cuff. So I like to take a stitch just right at the edge, maybe 1/8 of an inch inside. You can kind of feel it. It really doesn't matter. You can just measure or gauge your length between the edge of the cuff. Just go straight across here. And then I'm going to go and top stitch along each side, go straight across the other side, and then top stitch along this side. That secures all your openings, and then it also secures this batting and keeps this kind of nice and flat. So here we have our oven mitt, and it is all done. And I just want to show you one little thing if you want to do a little bit of a pleat here in the middle to make this a little lesser width in the middle. That gives you the opportunity to hang it up on a hook, so it'll look somewhat like this. So if you want to do that, what you want to do is find that center. So I'm going to turn it this way. Find that center again. So I'm just laying them right sides together. And this was, of course, with our little pleat. But what we want to do is take I'm just going to draw a little, this is my water erasable pen so I can mark that crease. And now I have that marked, so this is my crease here. What I want to do is draw a line 1 inch in from each edge and about 2 inches long. So I'm just going to take my ruler, place the 1 inch line right on that top stitch seam, and then the 1 inch line on the ruler right on this mark. And I'm going to draw this line right here. And I really don't need to be drawing that on both sides. I am just going to fold this in half, like so, right along that crease, and put a pin in here on each side. So what you want to do is just stitch right along that line I drew and back stitch at just a little bit at the beginning and at the end, just to secure it. And then I'll show you how to press it down and then top stitch it to keep that fold. So here I have my seam. I don't know if you can see it. So just 2-inch seam. And so now I just want to lay this flat and fold this. So what I'm doing is taking this fold towards that seam. It's going to center itself automatically nicely. Just pull it out like that. And so you'll see here on the back side how this folds out evenly like that. I'm just gonna grab my iron and pop it right on top. And then if you want to, you can secure by stitching on each side just along that top stitch line, so you're catching that fabric underneath, and just to secure it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here we have it pleated in the middle. It's top stitch on each side. So now it's nice to hang up and it's ready to use the next time you are cooking something fun up in the kitchen. I hope you enjoyed making the oven mitt with me. Wasn't that super easy? No binding and ready to take that delicious treat out of the oven. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.